Coming up next, it's live from my office. Hi, this is Steve Cochran for David Hochberg, the title sponsor of Live from My Office, and Team Hochberg. Right now, interest rates have come down a bit, but they're still high. Having said that, life happens. People are still going to need to buy homes. And when you buy homes, you're going to need a mortgage. And when you need a mortgage, who would you turn to? There's a million options and a ton of advertising and promotion. That advertising and promotion sometimes is less than honest. You know what you'll never get from Hochberg? Less than honest. Sometimes, I'd argue, he's too honest, but he actually wants to save you money. So even now, with these interest rates being what they are, if you have to do a mortgage, there's only one place I would call, the place I've recommended to my sister, to my son and my daughter, the place I've used and they've used. It is Team Hochberg, David Hochberg. They're the people to get it done. And by the way, if you're a company HR benefits manager, he's doing a new thing, an affinity program that it's free, and it's another great way to incentivize future hires at a time when more people need great people to come to work for them. What are you offering them? This is a great benefit. Again, doesn't cost you a thing, and it's going to help your new employees get themselves mortgages and the best mortgage help from David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. So you HR benefit managers, ask about it at 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. Team Hochberg and David Hochberg, they're getting it done. Welcome, Alexi Giannoulias, to the Steve Cochran Show. Nice to see you. It's been a very long time.
It's great to see you also. Thanks for having me.
Now, here's how I see things. You are living a good life, and somewhere along the line, you fell, you bumped your head, and you said, man, I got to get back into politics because it's so much fun.
That's pretty accurate.
No, I mean, people are quite fond of you. They have been for a long time. There's a lot of excitement, I feel, around what you're going to do. So the obvious question is, why do you want to be Secretary of State?
Well, again, thanks for having me. It's great to see you guys. I just, when I think about all the challenges that our country faces, and when I think about what's going on in our state, people are leaving, people are disgruntled, the temperature of politics, I found myself complaining a lot and sitting on the couch and punching the wall and really getting pissed off. And having two little girls made me sort of rethink, what am I really doing? I know it sounds cheesy and idealistic.
It's not cheesy at all.
When Secretary White said he wasn't running again, we looked at the office. I was, state treasurer. I know a little bit about state government and managing a large office. And we started really diving into what the office really does on so many levels. And I thought it was a great opportunity to step up and be a leader. I will tell you, as you guys know, I hate the politics of it. I hate asking for money and, campaigning.
Sure.
I love serving, and I love finding ways to really be innovative. So I'm excited about the opportunity to potentially be the Secretary of State.
Okay.
I recently had to renew my license, and you've talked about this too. You've made this platform, making it easier. It literally took me three days because I didn't know you had to make an online appointment. I didn't know you had to get the real ID. Talk about some of the changes that you want to implement. And Jesse White's a great guy. I mean, he's been a wonderful Secretary of State.
You'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who's going to knock Jesse White
he's
for the good things that he's done.
But
it doesn't mean there's not things that need to be tweaked and fixed.
Absolutely. You want to modernize it and make it just a little easier and avoid those long lines, which are still there.
So modernization is going to be at the forefront of everything that we do. So we've talked about the creation of an app, so you can have all the Secretary of State services on. Other states are doing it. We announced the Skip the Line program where you can actually schedule an appointment, and they know Steve's coming in at 2:10 p.m. on Tuesday. They know you're coming in. You know what time to go. They have your paperwork ready. We've also talked about mobile driver's license and ID. So a number of other states, actually, people have their driver's license on their phone or their mobile device. Arizona was the 9th state to put their driver's license on the Apple Wallet. So there's a lot happening, and we've fallen a little behind, but we're going to aggressively bring some new technology to the office. Vision tests online. There's so much happening. And we want to make sure we bring that technology to Illinois. Well,
and I'm glad you brought up the technology. I don't want to get Nick in here, but one of the things that people noticed during the quarantine with all the unemployment that needed to be processed was how behind the state of Illinois was on the website, technically being able to handle the crush, all of those things. As treasurer, the flow of money in the state. Is there enough money there now to handle the technology upgrades you want to do, or does that remain to be seen?
And I will tell you, the technology that we're going to implement will save Illinois tens, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of, over the medium and long term. Our goal is to cut foot traffic at the DMVs by 50 to 75%.
Wow.
We think it's absolutely doable. And yeah, as far as costs, we're doing it to bring costs down because there'll be less paperwork, less lines, less demand on the employees in the office. So something that is kind of a no-brainer. The people who work there want it. All Illinoisans want it. It'll make people's lives easier. There's no reason in this day and age for people to be waiting 3 hours for a piece of paper to renew a license or ID.
Here. I made an appointment and had to wait an hour and a half.
For your appointment?
Yeah. I made an appointment because I had to get the real ID card.
Yeah, that seems like that's problematic.
I didn't know, Alexi, because, in the past, I'm going to date myself, but in the past, you go, your license expires, you go, you give your old license, you take your documentation. I wanted the real ID. So I brought everything I thought I needed. Yeah, I talked about this. Nick is probably sick of hearing about this, but I went. I thought I had all the documentation. They sent me away. After 3 days, I finally got the appointment. And then when I went, I still had to wait an hour and a half. And again, I don't mean to complain. I'm very happy that I got the ID and that I just wish I would have known a lot of this stuff.
That should never be a three-trip deal.
Right.
No, it should not. And government has always historically been a little behind the private sector, but I think as far as efficiencies, there's so much happening that we've seen in the private sector. And if we can when we bring those new technologies to the office, we are really going to make people's lives easier, and it'll allow us to focus on so many other elements of the office. We're in charge of corporate formation and business registration in Illinois. We want to make it a place for small businesses to come to feel comfortable being created here, to expand, to grow. We want to help people in underserved communities start their first business, expand their business, explain to a lot of these entrepreneurs the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp and an LLC and the tax implications of those. So our goal eventually, when we cut foot traffic at the DMVs, is to turn these into business service facilities. So there's just so much with the office that we're going to do, and I'm really excited about it.
Well, that's great. Alexi Giannoulias, Nick, what's your question?
So, Alexi, I asked the same question of Dan, who's running against you. There's so much that the Secretary of State's office is responsible for. You got the index office, you've got the Capitol Police, you got blah, 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 blah. Is there anything that you would do to kind of maybe consolidate some things or make more efficiencies in that way?
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely look at finding ways to do more with less. I did it as state treasurer. We consolidated a number of our divisions. We added programs. We talked about financial literacy. We did our Welcome Home program. We did our Bank On program where we help people buy their first home, start their first business. So we look to do the same thing.
I think it's a great question because if there, it's what everybody complains about, government waste. If there's all these things that make your job and your staff's job tougher to do, you got to consolidate, right?
Yes, and I think, and that's one of the reasons we've been talking about modernization so much. When you make things easier, when you streamline different processes, it not only helps the people who are waiting in line, the consumers, all of us, all the listeners, all the Illinoisans, but helps people who work at the office. So we are going to create efficiencies. We are going to look at finding ways to do more with less. I did it, as you guys may or may not recall, when I was state treasurer. We added all these programs. We found ways to do more with less. We put all the state's assets online, and we cut our budget every year I was in office, and that's something that I'm very proud of.
Dave is calling from Crystal Lake, kind of a similar question along Nick's line, but with all these various things that are out there to consolidate, Dave, what's the top 2 or 3 or 4 priorities for the office? Consolidation, upgrades in technology, what else?
Modernization technology will be huge. We're also the state's librarian, which many people don't know is that we oversee over 3,500 libraries. We want to make sure that libraries are a place for kids to, get.
Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. No, totally just know
I didn't
that.
know that.
No.
Yes, so that's a huge component of everything we do. Every single community libraries play a vital role. We want to.
So you're going to walk around shushing everybody? Even when they're public?
I was the guy getting shushed.
Yes, I know. Yes.
So ethics is also a huge deal.
Well, this is interesting to me because I got on you during the campaign for the commercials because they said that I want my driver's license, but I got educated on something. And I think it's important you talk about this. Part of the job of the Secretary of State's office are lobbyist ethics, access ethics, things of those nature. Explain that.
So we're in charge of all lobbyist registrations and reports, and we want to make sure transparency is a huge deal. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. It comes up every day. People are sick and tired of the scandals and corruption. They want to know that people who are serving are doing it for the right reason. So We ended pay-to-play in the state treasurer's office. We want to do the same thing. We want to make sure there's not even the hint of pay-to-play in the Secretary of State's office. So we put out the most wide-ranging, comprehensive ethics package in state government. We did it when I announced my candidacy. We just want to make people feel good again, to the extent they're able to in this crazy environment, about their elected officials, that they're in it for the right reasons, especially when it comes to lobbyists. We're also, and people don't know this, we're essentially the state's SEC officer. So we go after white-collar criminals and corporate criminals. We have a division within the office. We want to ramp that up, hire more auditors, more investigators, to go after some of the bad guys, which, by the way, we also believe will bring some new revenue to the state of Illinois.
I don't wonder Jesse White was tired.
Oh, right.
I just thought it was because he got older.
Ethics in government transparency. Obviously, that's a platform that you are running on.
Yes, and that's what we talk about every day, and it resonates with people. And again, as we've talked about, there's the far left, the far right. Everyone's always arguing the temperature is so high. We're just trying to talk about solutions. How can we make government better? How can we increase transparency? And how can we make people's lives easier?
All right. So one of the concerns about you comes from a positive in your life. You're a popular guy. People, meet you. They want to say hi to you. They want a picture with you and all that. There's a concern in this state, legitimately or otherwise, that Pritzker is going to become the boss of all, and that elected officials that work in the government will answer to Pritzker, not to the people of Illinois. How do you keep the Secretary of State's office separate from the governor's office when you don't agree with the governor?
Well, as you probably know, I always ran against the machine. I was never the machine's choice when I ran for state treasurer. I ran against Mike Madigan. They didn't want me there.
Whatever happened to him? Did he ever amount to anything? Good luck, Mike.
I was
Call me.
I was a 30-year-old kid, and the Democratic machine didn't want me there. We worked hard. We won that race. So I've always done what I think is best for the office and for the state. It's very easy for me. Just do the right thing. I'm not beholden to anyone. I never have been, and I think that allows me to do my job even easier. And I think that's a huge reason we were so successful when I was state treasurer. I came from the private sector. I didn't have no one in my family ever worked in government. I didn't really, we were able to do the right thing every single day.
Nick.
And so as Pat Quinn would say, I think you have a servant's heart when it comes to this. And I think that's why the Secretary of State's office may be a good place for you, because it's really not that political. But at the same time, is there a way to use that position to have influence? I mean, you hear people saying, you're running for Secretary of State, but you may say, well, we got to get tough on crime. Well, that's not your job. So how would you use your position to maybe influence some of the things out there that could change some of the policies out there?
So that's a great question, Nick. So, it's the largest Secretary of State's office in the United States of America. More people in Illinois use that office than any other state agency. So we do have a bully pulpit. And on a lot of issues, I'd like to think that if we're able to step up and stand up and say, look, crime is a very real issue. There are some things that we're looking at, voting, transparency, ethics. I do think even outside the purview of our office, we do have a say by being, the largest office where more people recognize the Secretary of State probably than most other offices. So unequivocally, there's a role for us to play, and I plan on being as proactive as I can, because I do live in the city. I do see what's going on. I love this city. I'm never leaving. I love the state. My family and I are never leaving. And I think we have to step up and fight for it, though.
Everybody's got to care enough to step up and fight for it. Andre, I wanted to ask Alexi about the girls, unless you're going to do it.
No, I was just this is all you.
You're a dad of 3 little girls.
Correct.
Congratulations, by the way, on your new baby.
The campaign wasn't just an excuse to get out of the house, I know.
Steve wanted me in studio in person.
Yes. So, but being a dad changes everything. So is that part of the motivation to get back?
100%. 100%. And, when I was state treasurer, I was a single guy and sort of I had a different perspective on the day-to-day job. But now everything, again, this sounds a little cheesy and idealistic, but every single thing I do, I try and see through the lens of my daughters and my kids. And I think about the future of our country. I think about the temperature of politics. I think about, some of the hatred and negativity out there. And I just want to make this a better place for my kids and hopefully make them proud that when times got tough, their dad stood up and tried to play a role in making things better in some small capacity.
We all have to do it.
And will you take them to the DMV when they're 16? The lines.
I don't want them to be 16. I'm thrilled with where they are now.
You make an interesting point, though. The old take your kid to work day. I don't think the girls are going to go with you.
I don't think so either.
The job doesn't seem like it's that much fun when you're 7.
Right.
They think I'm cool now. I don't think they realize.
Yeah, you don't want to ruin it for them.
All right.
They would have
You're
a blast
on a roll.
in here. Yeah, they watch the commercials and like they think it's so cool that there's little kids that I'm playing basketball with little kids and
And they get ice cream at the
Sure.
end. Why
Yes.
not?
Sure. Listen, I think you got a tough fight ahead. I think it's great for Illinois that we've got 2 candidates that really seem to be dedicated to the job, and I appreciate the explanation. I hope you'll come back.
I'd be honored to come back.
Give them the
Thanks,
website
Alexi.
again.
It's alexiforus.com.
Golfers, let me talk to you about Cantini Golf Course. They are a proud sponsor of Live from my office, and I'm proud to have them along because I love that golf course. And I love Terry Hanley and all his people there. You know the deal where you walk into a golf course, and if you play a lot of golf like I do, I know you've seen this. You walk into a golf course, and there's somebody behind the counter at a pro shop that act like they're doing you a favor to take your money and to be there. Man, are you never going to get that at Cantini. From the moment you drive down the long drive that leads to the clubhouse and those 3 beautiful nines at Cantini and their incredible practice facility and their academy and the very cool kids course that we've talked about before, you're going to feel like it's your country club. And it is. It's your country club for the day. And they're going to be happy to see you. So let me just read you a few key words, if you will, from actual Cantini reviews. Here's the words that pop up. Beautiful course. Great course. Great condition. Can't wait to go back. Great practice facility. Fantastic way to warm up. A masterpiece. Perfectly manicured. Pristine. A must play. A true gem and a joy to play. That's from actual golfers. Those are reviews. People that took the time to say how great a day they had at Cantini after they had their day at Cantini. What are you missing out on? Cantini Golf. Cantigny. It's cantinigolf.com. Or for all your questions, you could pick up the phone and call them as well. 630-260-8199. 630-260-8199. Cantinigolf.com. Spell it Cantigny. Cantinigolf.com. Michael O'Hanlon is at the Brookings Institute, and he's been good enough to work with us and joins us by Zoom. Thank you for that, my friend.
Nice to be with you.
You know, we're pleased to hear about what's going on in Ukraine and the gains that Ukraine's military forces have made, but my sense is you're going to tell me this is far from over.
Exactly. You know, first of all, I don't know what's going to happen next. I admit there are more uncertainties than my feeble military brain can fully wrap itself around. And so I don't really have a prognostication on the next step. It's going to be one of these things like Yogi Berra said, where it's easier to predict the future once it's in the past.
Yes, yes.
Because if Ukraine makes further gains, we'll just say that the same kind of tactics, using these HIMARS to soften up Russian positions, isolate them, deprive them of supply, demoralize the Russian troops who aren't even really sure why they're there, and then allow for sort of an influx of Ukrainian infantry at some moment when the Russian line is broken. That'll be the story we tell. On the other hand, if things get slower, then what we'll say is the Russians managed to consolidate some of their positions, and some of the terrain that was suitable for offensives, in places where they've succeeded the last 2 weeks, is not similar to the terrain of the future fight, and therefore the next undertaking is going to be more complex. Maybe the Russians are not as easily sort of isolated and starved out of supply as they were in some of these previous locations, or the Ukrainian trick of saying they're just going to fight in the south, but then also fighting in the north. That probably won't work as well the second time. And so it'll be easy to tell a story after the fact about why it happened. But all these factors now have to work together. And I don't really know. My guess is the Ukrainians will keep making some modest progress over the next few weeks. But I don't know if that's really going to continue at the same pace. And then pretty soon, Old Man Winter is going to arrive. Although before Old Man Winter comes Old Man Fall and rain and mud. And so by November, you probably have a slowdown in the fighting, regardless of who's got the momentum. So those are just some of the, factors I would lay out there, but I don't really know how to put them all together and get an accurate sense as to if and when this thing ends.
Michael, in addition to the pushback from Ukraine, 65 Russian officials demanding Putin's ouster, it seems like this chinking away kind of at Putin's reign. Will this eventually lead to Russia, you think, pulling back, or will this give Putin more momentum to say, hey, we're all in?
That's a great question. It is good news to see Russians resisting and recognizing that their fearless, fail-safe leader has failed miserably here at the cost of maybe 20,000 Russian dead, in addition to all the Ukrainian dead. So, and he's, of course, turned the country into a pariah nation where previously we might have been a little wary around certain Russians, but mostly blamed Putin. It's increasingly hard to separate Putin from the country as a whole because he's had such popularity and he's dominated its politics. And so Russians are realizing that, individually their futures are going to be more complicated and their kids' futures are going to be more complicated. They'll be cut off from the world. So they're objecting, they're resisting. It's fantastic. They feel like they can do this without, they have courage to do it because I think they are putting themselves at some risk. But I don't really expect it to snowball because I think Putin does dominate the politics and military planning at the elite level. I think a lot of Russians agree with the basic idea that Ukraine should be kept away from the West. They may now be showing the kind of, second thoughts that, let's say, we had in the Vietnam War. I'm not sure that means they're going to actually have a revolution in the streets. Putin, I'm sure, is processing all of this and wondering if he should go all in, do a mass conscription mobilization, or maybe look for a more limited compromise outcome where he essentially keeps the land that he had before February 24th, the Crimea, Eastern Donbass, right. and then have a deal where Ukraine agrees not to join NATO and call it a day. That's what I would hope. But I'm not sure the Ukrainians would go along with that right now because they want Crimea back. They want Donbass back. So it's a long way of saying I don't know on this one either. I think there's a small chance that this Russian unrest could translate into a change in Putin's strategy or even threaten his hold on power. But I have to say, I sort of doubt it. I sort of think he's still in the driver's seat in terms of Russian politics.
Talking to Michael O'Hanlon at the Brookings Institute, regardless of what he says, he's a brilliant defensive mind. Yes. And he ought to be the defensive coordinator for the Bears next time they play the Packers.
Yeah, I second that.
So Putin has his meeting with China. Any insight you can lend into what came out of that?
It does sound like with both China and India, Putin got a little bit of a talking to by President Xi and Prime Minister Modi, and both of them said, this ain't so good. It's raising food prices in our countries. We're put in uncomfortable positions of trying to partially support you, even when you're the clear aggressor. Most of the world has that figured out by now. To see not only China but even India doing this is really consequential. The world's obviously two most populous countries, but countries that have been supportive or at least tolerant of what Putin's been up to. They haven't been all in. Even China has resisted selling weapons to Russia or giving and continuing many high-tech exports to Russia of the type it normally would. And so now in these private meetings and public statements, you have not only Xi and Modi challenging Putin, but Putin acknowledging it. And I don't know if he's trying to play Mr. Nice Guy in front of certain audiences and seem all reasonable for the moment until he can find some pretext to then go back to his, barbarous, murderous self, or if he really is starting to think that it's time to find a gradual pathway out of this. To be honest, I think it's probably more the former. He's probably just saying what he needs to get out of a tough situation with no intention of changing his military strategy. But I hope I'm wrong.
Michael, a truth to the Soviet-era technology fueling North Korea's missile program, and are they really buying back Soviet-era tech from North Korea?
Yeah, it's amazing when a country like Russia, with what it's produced in the world in terms of physics and math and rockets and technology, has to start buying weapons from North Korea and Iran. But North Korea does make pretty good missiles, and Iran does make pretty good drones. And And the Russians do appear to be using the Iranian drones, at least already with some effect, and a partial counter to these HIMARS artillery systems that we've been sending in. And so again, I expect, like in physics, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. I think Russia will probably find some means of reducing its vulnerabilities to Ukraine's new cache of weapons. It's not going to be perfect, and it's dependent on North Korean and Iranian technology to an extent. But I still think through a combination of better concealment, better dispersal, using greater drone technology, using some North Korean missiles, that the Russians will be able to probably hold on to at least a large chunk of the land they now have in Ukraine, at least this year. Then next year becomes a whole new ballgame if the war is still going by the time of the spring thaw. And then we'll see who's better prepared over the wintertime for a resumption of all-out fighting. I'm afraid we probably have to think in these kind of terms, because even though there are some of these hopeful signs that you've mentioned, I don't really expect this war to end any time in the next few months.
And the freeze out is coming, as you mentioned, and that's a grave concern, not just to Ukraine, but a good portion of Europe in general.
Right. Yep. Yeah, Europe's going to have to do with less natural gas this winter, almost for sure. And but I think they'll do it. I think the Europeans are aware of the stakes, and for all we sometimes correctly criticize them for not doing enough with defense, they're on the brunt of the coming natural gas crunch and crisis, and I think they'll tough it out.
It's Michael O'Hanlon. Follow him at the Brookings Institute on social media as well. And thank you for working with us this morning and jumping on in the manner you did. We appreciate it very much.
My pleasure, and go Bears.
There you go.
All right.
Says the new defensive coordinator. Team Hochberg, David Hochberg. Rates are not your friend now. No, even if they've dropped a bit, rates are not your friend. You know what else isn't your friend? Is actually your enemy. Is waiting. I mean, let's face it, the reality of life happens. People are moving to Chicago every single day, moving to Illinois every single day, and they need homes. And the whole housing bubble thing has kind of changed. You could make money selling your house now, but then you got to figure out where to live. Like all of these questions, all of these quandaries, all of these mysteries of life are surrounding the biggest investment in your life, your house. They can all be answered by David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. Let me tell you about an example. Jamie, 70, a limo driver, business got crushed by the pandemic, was living off credit cards. The stress of not working and credit card debt really made Jamie physically ill, so he called Team Hochberg for a reverse mortgage consultation. Jose Rodriguez, the reverse mortgage expert at Team Hochberg, walked him through it and helped him secure a reverse mortgage, paid off his mortgage, eliminated his credit card debt, reduced his payments $2,500 a month. So before calling Team Hochberg, stress and physical ailments were the rule of the day. After calling Team Hochberg, Jamie secured a reverse mortgage, eliminated that debt, saved $30,000 a year. Team Hochberg's done the same for me and the Live from My Office listeners. Many of you have already been in. Just pick up the phone and call them. I mean, they're not psychics. They're really good at saving you money, but they can't help you if you don't call. Don't wait. Don't wait. Ask them about refis. Ask them about a way to help pay off your debts and use your home in the process. You got equity sitting there, and you may need it now. 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. You've got questions, they've got answers, and there are no stupid questions. Tune in to their radio show, Home Sweet Home Chicago, hosted by David, at Saturday mornings after House Smarts on WGN Radio at 10 a.m. Meanwhile, Homeside Financial is an equal housing lender. NMLS number 1124061.
30 years plus on the airwaves, you have turned your dial to me. Now you're tuned into my podcast. It's live from my office, Steve. From Ithaca, New York, to Carolina South, W. Cochran Steve. From Minneapolis and then Chicago twice, top-rated shows achieved. Sit back, relax, and now listen to my show. When or wherever you are, 'cause you're on the go. A-list celebs with some laughs and great info. Live from my office, the Steve Cochran Podcast Show. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No better place to be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Subscribe and like for free. Yeah. Live from my office, Steve. So glad you're with me. It's live from my office, Steve.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to CochranShow.com for more.